Alright, I am back in the office, workshop, bedroom, TV room area, and I have shot one of the nocks of my Black Eagle arrows. I think they're called Black Eagle, and I'm going to change it out, but it doesn't. I like these kind of nocks because you don't have to glue them. You just pull them out and just replace them. And it looks to me like you just need to line it up straight up and down on any of the feathers. This one here is like that, so it's easy enough to get it lined back up. But I like these. They go in there tight enough to where you don't have to glue them like the old nocks that you have to glue on wooden arrows. Now I know that that's not traditional, strictly traditional. These carbon fiber arrows. I think that's close enough right there, but I like them. And I do use a Howard Hill Wesley Special longbow, and that's pretty traditional, but I guess if you really want to be traditional, you got to have a self bow that's sinew backed and all that kind of stuff, which I do have some of those too. But I like the Howard Hill type longbow. I enjoy shooting it very much. Now, what I want to talk about while I'm in here, I'd like to read something from this wonderful book right here, and I have bookmarked it, and I want to talk about I am a follower of Jesus Christ, also known as Yeshua the Messiah. Yeshua was actually the Hebrew name, and Messiah is a Anglicized version of Mashiach. Yeshua HaMashiach. And for the people that speak Hebrew out there, maybe that's not exactly right, but it's the way I'm saying it until somebody gives me a lesson in it. Alright, the deal is this. As Joe Biden says, the deal is this. Yeshua, when he came, Jesus, when he came, in essence, he is God. And I will say he came to earth in disguise, you might say. But it wasn't really a costume, because he really was a man fully, but he was also God. So he came as a man, but he was still God. Lowered himself, you might say, onto our level to make his great sacrifice to atone for our sin. But I want to read you this part right here where Yeshua actually claims to be God. Now, it's an interesting thing that through the years, virtually all other religions or religious leaders have acknowledged that Jesus was a great moral teacher. The morals that he taught, they understand. Those are correct. Thou shalt not kill, do unto others as you would have them do. Yes, he was a great moral teacher. But they disagree with him, with the fact that he might have been God or that he was God. Now we have his words here in the Bible. And I'm going to show you, and I learned this from C.S. Lewis, the great C.S. Lewis, probably 30-something years ago. There's an inconsistency here. He was a great moral leader, they will admit that. But out of the same book, Jesus claimed to be God. The great I Am of the Old Testament. Apparently there are 7 I am statements in the New Testament where Jesus flat out said, I am. Now, to us, that might not mean a whole lot, but to the Jews, it made their hair stand up on end, because they understood that no man could make himself God. Well, the reason they were saying that was because in the ancient world, the kings and as the really big ones, they did make themselves gods by their own decrees. They said, the pharaohs did it, they said we're gods. Well, they were so powerful, and they were so far above the peasantry and the little people of their kingdoms. Those people were unable to read. They were essentially slaves. And the pharaohs, through their rituals, their lying that they did, through the priests that were working for them, they told the people that they were really gods. So that's why the Hebrews, the Jews, they were taught, hey, no man can be God. Don't believe that. So when Yeshua comes along and says, I am, he was claiming to be God. Okay, the Jews knew that a Messiah was coming, but it wasn't generally understood that the Messiah was going to actually be God or God's Son, which is the same thing, same divinity. So, now some of them did. Now, I'm quite sure that some scholarly Hebrews that really read the ancient Old Testament very carefully figured out, hey, this guy is coming, he's God. Okay, so, but generally it was not accepted. And the Jews at the time had morphed into a works-based religion in the thousands of years since they came out of Egypt and were saved by God from slavery. And they were basically had developed the Mosaic law into a ritual that they actually convinced themselves that they were keeping the Mosaic law, the law of Moses, which was the Ten Commandments, which was never given to be kept. It sounds kind of funny, but in a sense, it can't be kept by any human being back then, and it can't be kept by any human being now. The law, as somebody said, and I don't know who, and I don't know when, God gave the Ten Commandments to prove that you couldn't keep it. He was showing what godly perfection was. And when you fell short of it, in the Old Testament, they went into the temple and they slaughtered a lamb, spread his blood, sprinkled his blood, and that was to give them atonement. In other words, they were forgiven for all they did, but only temporarily until the next year they had to do it all over again. But that was pointing to a time when the real Messiah would come and he would shed his blood for everybody and the whole thing would be over with. It is done, Yeshua said on the cross. It is finished. Well, you notice they're not doing any animal sacrifices anymore. That age has passed. But my point is that, let me get back to C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis pointed out to me, I think the book was called Mere Christianity, that religious leaders through the ages of all religions, Hindu, Islam, Muslim, all, yes, he was a great moral teacher. The problem is, Yeshua claimed that he was God. Now, and these other religions don't accept him as God. They say, no, he was just a great moral leader. Here's the kicker, or here's the deal. The deal is that a man can't be a great moral teacher and at the same time run around claiming he's God if he's not. A man that claims that he's God is having a mental breakdown. There's only one exception. That is if he is God. So the Jews of the time, they didn't consider, maybe some of them did, but generally they just said, he's a crazy man, he has a demon, he's claiming to be God. Now in their culture, they were told to stone any man that tried to claim he was God. That would have been a king, like King David. If King David had claimed to be God, they should have stoned him because he was a man. But here comes this other guy, Yeshua, and he claims to be God. And he also backs it up with works, miracles. Okay? And so they did pick up stones to kill him quite a few times. And then they finally did kill him, and they asked him at his trial, point blank, are you the Son of the living God? And he did not deny it. Now the reason he didn't deny it was because he was. And another thing, as God, he couldn't lie. He couldn't do any sin. So if he had said, no, I'm not, well, he would have been a liar, and then he wouldn't have been. But he said he didn't deny it. He didn't deny it. The words are not exactly understood, but so you say, he said, you're saying I'm God, or I'm not going to deny it. Once again, the problem is a great moral teacher that's a man is not a great moral teacher if he claims to be God, and he isn't. But if he is God, he's telling the truth, and he can still be a great moral teacher. Okay, one of the I am statements where Yeshua said that he was God. Okay? All right, here I'm going to get right to the chase. He was having an argument with the religious Jews, and he was saying that they were from their father, the devil, who was a liar. And they said, no, Abraham is our father. And Jesus essentially said, I know you are descendants of Abraham. He admitted that they were genetically descendants of Abraham, just as he was, as a man. But your father is the devil. And he said, you are slaves. They said, we're not slaves. And he said, you're slaves to sin. Okay? So here's where he said, all right, let me go back a little bit. Bear with me. Just let me read it to you, the whole little thing. It is not long. Okay, this is before Abraham was, I am. That's God's name, I am. Then the Jews answered and said to him, do we not rightly say that you are a Samaritan and have a demon? Jesus answered, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. But I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. And I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks and judges. Most assuredly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. I'm going to have to stop right there and explain that. And I'm trying to get it, but listen to what Jesus said. If anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. He says never see death. And the only way that can be interpreted, any way I can figure it out, is that instantly, upon the time that your monitor flatlines, that you're alive with him. So in essence, you don't die. Now your body does, and your people around you, your families around there, wishing that you were still alive maybe, but you're with him. You will never see death. Okay, I just had to say that. That's what he said. Then the Jews said to him, "Now we know that you have a demon. Abraham is dead, and the prophets, and you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who is dead? Are you greater than our father Abraham, who is dead? And then the prophets who are dead, who do you make yourself out to be?" They asked him point blank, "Who are you? Who are you saying you are?" Jesus answered, "If I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father who honors me, of whom you say he is your God. Yet you have not known him, but I know him. And if I say I do not know him, I shall be a liar like you. But I do know him, and I keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it, and was glad." Then the Jews said to him, "You are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham?" Jesus said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am." Then they took up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. So they had every intention of killing him right there. They knew they were supposed to kill a man that made himself God. But what they weren't considering is there's only one exception, and that is if he really is God. But they were apparently not aware or had never considered the possibility that God could put himself in a man's body and come to earth. Well, he had a reason for doing it. He came to perform that sacrifice on the cross, which was foreshadowed by the thousands of years of the Passover sacrifice, where they killed a lamb and shed his blood. That's why they call Jesus the Lamb of God. Okay? And it was C.S. Lewis that showed me. It wasn't any of my doing. I learned it from him. I give him all the credit, and I'm sure he gives God all the credit. Because he's not dead if he was a believer. He's not here anymore. If Jesus was a mere man and said he was God, then he was a lunatic. Okay? And so, if he wasn't a lunatic and said he was God, then he was God. So Jesus purposefully put us on the spot. We're either going to say Jesus is a lunatic. In other words, we can't say he was a great moral teacher, like most of the religious leaders of the different religions. They say he was a great religious leader. You can't be a great religious leader and be a liar and be claiming you're God. You're a lunatic. So it's our choice. We have to make a choice. Are we willing to say that Jesus Christ was a lunatic? Do you want to say that? You need to say it, or either say he was God. That's really the real choice you're given. Now, most of the religious leaders that say he was a great moral teacher and all that, they don't really understand the Bible. They probably never read it, but they do know, yes, Jesus was a great moral teacher, but he was also God. So that's the choice he gave us. I should have moved my tea out of the way. That's the choice he gave us, and that's what I'm urging you to do. If you're in that group of people that's on the fence here, or as he put it, lukewarm, ask yourself, can a great moral teacher claim he's God if he's not? No, he can't, because he's not a great moral teacher. He's a lunatic. So, Are you willing to say Jesus was a lunatic? When I was presented with that, I said, ain't no way I'm going to say he's a lunatic. I know, the way I put it to myself, I know he was really something special. I just can't see him being God. So that night, I was about 35 years old when this happened, and I was pretty knowledgeable in the Bible. I said, okay, God, Father, I got to know who Jesus was. I was used to, praying to God, I was taught as a kid, the Lord's Prayer and all that kind of stuff. So I said, I'd like to know who he is. And I'd like to know it sooner than later. Well, the very next morning I woke up and my whole life changed. For the first time, I saw who Jesus really was. And that's why I'm following him now, and that's why I'm making my attempt to declare his name before men and to explain what it's all about. So thank you for watching. Sorry about my clumsiness in this endeavor and my losing my place and all. I'm 72 or right at it. I have a little trouble seeing these days. This is little small writing here. I don't have an old people's Bible with big print. And but I'm doing it the best I can. And I think my take on it is he honors me for it. I'm doing my best to tell people. So this is Gardner Israel, and thank you for watching, and I will talk to you later, God willing.